Brothers and sisters in the Dharma, may you all be well, happy, and peaceful. We are going to have a discussion of a Dharma topic based on a very inspiring story. The story is titled The Rose and the Cactus. Of course, it's not a true story, it's a fable, maybe just like a Jataka story or an Aesop's fable. But this story is very inspiring because it teaches us very important Dharma principles, and also you can say life lessons that will enable us to live a more peaceful and happy life in our world, especially in a world where we face with so much difficulty, conflicts, problems, and trouble. Of course, in this the story, you have, plants can talk and so on. But the important thing is the Dharma, the life lessons. Now, the texts are in English and Chinese, but the Chinese was done using Google Translate, so it might not be 100% accurate, but it will help those who do not follow English so well, so they can read the Chinese in order to get a good picture of the story and the Dharma that can be learned. Now, you have the pictures that correspond as closely as possible to the text. It was quite difficult actually to get the appropriate pictures. Now, as usual, we will launch the PowerPoint right from the beginning. So, from the beginning. So now you see the cover slide, and here you can see the main characters in this story are the cactus and the rose, right? And this is a desert setting. So in the desert, things can be very harsh, but yet you will be able to find some plants and also some animals, including small insects, which can survive the harsh conditions. Now, we will discuss this as we go along. So, the two characters, the rose and the cactus. Now, one, of course, is very beautiful, elegant, and the cactus, well, people usually do not regard this as beautiful as the flowers, right? But cactus actually can also flower during certain times of the year in the desert. Now, let us now go on to the next slide, which is beginning the story, actually, slide number 2. So that is the next slide. And let me take off my picture first, stop the video. Okay, once upon a time, in a distant desert, there bloomed a splendid rose, radiating beauty and grace. Now you can picture the scenario where you have, a desert. It could be like the Sahara Desert or many other deserts, all types of deserts. Even in very cold regions, you could have deserts, barren, usually all covered with ice. So there was this marvelous, very beautiful rose, right? And a rose symbolizes love, beauty, and so on, and grace. So she was very, very proud. So with every petal, she basked in the admiration of all the creatures around her and took great pride in her enchanting looks. Now you can see this very interesting point, and it applies to people also. There are people who are very beautiful or handsome, and they have this self-pride, so proud of their looks, the external beauty. So this rose was like that. And all the other creatures, of course, right? Wow, look up, as if like admiring this rose, because, the deserts, you have, some plants, or certain types of grass, right? So they are not as beautiful as the rose. So this rose became more proud because she looked fantastic, enchanting. However, the rose had a peculiar complaint about her unfortunate proximity to an ugly cactus. Now, actually, near one of the cactuses was this no rose. So the rose was not very far away from the cactus. So she did not like the presence of the cactus, the rose. Always would complain, right, about her neighbor, very close to the cactus, because she considered the cactus very ugly, you see. So she would criticize, she would complain, she might even condemn and curse the four C's, to complain, to criticize, to condemn and curse. That's terrible, isn't it? We have people also in the world who always have these four C's in their life. Like they like, or they get into a habit of always complaining, criticizing, condemning, and cursing, but not doing positive things to change situations. So the rose was like that, you see. So it was a very, very terrible situation. But the cactus, let's see, how did the cactus respond? Right. Now, of course, here, the plants actually, right, could speak, could maybe scold, could curse also lah. And that's what the rose did lah to the cactus. Not a very good type of behavior. But later on, when we reflect, we see that, this rose and also the cactus will reflect certain things, certain life lessons. They teach us certain qualities, virtues that we need to practice. So let us now look at the story first. Now we go on to slide number 3. So every day, the rose couldn't resist taunting and ridiculing the cactus about his unappealing appearance. Now you could see in the first picture, slightly animated, I've put in the rose not far from one of the cactuses, right? And of course, in the desert, you have changing conditions. So when the story starts, the conditions were not so harsh, right? Probably, there are times also where the desert could be cool and then more greenery. And then there will be times, very dry, hot, and so on. So this story started off with pretty good conditions. So the rose probably, had this habit of making fun of the cactus, taunting, like, insulting, ridiculing, belittling. There are people like that, who always like to, ridicule, insult, say terrible things about another person. So that was the character of this rose. And why? Is the rose would, criticize and insult, say, you, so ugly, so terrible. You have all the prickly thorns, and you are not elegant and graceful like me. Oh, I know. This is what we call conceit and pride. And we will see later on, remember the proverb, pride goes before a fall. Despite the cactus' silence, the other plants nearby tried to reason with the rose, urging her to see beyond mere looks and value the cactus for its resilience and usefulness. But the beautiful rose was consumed by her own vanity, and the wise words of others fell upon deaf ears. Now let's scrutinize a bit on this long sentence. The cactus, had this very good quality, enduring, patient. She did not retaliate or react to the words of the rose. So the other plants nearby, certain types of shrubs or certain types of desert plants, some grass, they don't look really beautiful, right? So they saw that the cactus was silent and did not retaliate. So they tried to protect the cactus because they themselves were not as beautiful as the rose, you see. So what they did was they tried to talk to the rose. Do not be like that. Do not judge a person or do not judge things just by their external looks. In other words, don't judge a book by its cover. You have to go beyond just physical, superficial appearance. And you must actually see the good points of the cactus, like resilience, able to endure hardship, right? Boleh tahan the harsh conditions. And also, you will see that the cactus is a very useful plant in the desert, isn't it? But the beautiful rose, that's what happens. When a person is drowned in the self-pride, thinking of himself or herself, very egoistic. So she was not ready. She wouldn't even bother to think about what others say. She was sort of controlled by her vanity or conceit or pride, arrogance, her vanity. So the other wise words of the other plants or other creatures even also. It could be other plants or it could also be creatures also. So fell on deaf ears. The rose did not pay attention, did not bother about this. They continue criticizing, complaining, making fun, laughing at the cactus. Always praise her own beauty. So that is this situation. So we are actually now at number 4. Now, let us go on to the next one, which is slide 3. Now we go on to slide 4. So the rose continue to belittle, all right, to look down upon, to make fun of, to consider a person worthless and useless, to belittle the cactus. Why? Because she was blinded by her preoccupation with external beauty. She was just concerned about external beauty. So she couldn't go beyond that. So as the days pass, right, and the desert also have seasons. There will be seasons of very, very high temperatures, very dry, and there will be seasons where there will be some rain, not so hot, and so on. So as the days pass, the desert change in conditions already. From cool, not the summer season, it went on to the unyielding hot summer. The hot summer came very, very hot, right? So the desert is now experience this very, very taxing and challenging summertime. And you can see that the sun in the cloudless sky above is scorching, it's burning. You have seen pictures of deserts, like the Arab Bedouins and nomads, so they would wear the clothes to protect against the hot sun. And sometimes, the dry winds also could blow and so on. So the scorching sun mercilessly, no mercy, that is nature. The forces of nature drain the last traces of water from the soil. So, of course, there will be some rain there during certain parts. So the water would be in the sense of the desert. But then when the summer came and the sun being so scorching and hot would dry the ground, the sand. So water would start to evaporate off. And then there will be a great shortage of water already. So during the more favorable season of coolness, where, you could see greenery also, some green plants, and then the animals more active. So it was during that time, it was a large, very more greenery and more beautiful, you could say, easier to cope with, that type of surroundings. Now, conditions change, turn into barren already. Barren in the sense that, maybe some of the animals like go to hibernate already, and then the plants are like dying already, waiting for some water. Some would die, but some will still manage to survive and drag on the wither away. Of course, the plants all were desperate for water. Just as human beings, if you don't have enough water in the desert, you will perish after a certain number of days, isn't it? And there will be animals, as you can see in the picture, also the skull thing of an animal that died because of thirst, because of lack of water. So, but the cactus, you see, still stood very, very firm. So, that is this slide number 4. So now let us go on to slide number 5. Alas, even the radiant rose couldn't escape the clutches of the merciless drought, as the arid winds blew her once vibrant petals. No one actually would be free from the harsh conditions in it. So it will be a question of who could withstand, could endure the hard times, the challenging conditions. That is a very interesting life lesson for us, right? So in tough times, right? In rough times, the tough get going, right? When things get rough, the tough get going. Whereas the lambat one cannot endure. So this rose was not that like the cactus. So, of course, the drought will be experienced by all. No favoritism, just because you are a rose, beautiful plant, still merciless. That is the force of nature. It's natural. And the winds that blew were hot winds, dry winds, not the cold winds, because it was summertime. So her vibrant petals at that time during the good conditions, they look so fresh, so beautiful, right? Vibrant. Now things begin to change. So the petals began to wither. So, they became dry. Some would turn into brown color and drop, didn't die yet, but actually losing the vitality, and also the colors not so nice already because of lacking of water. So now when you see this, the beauty that the rose had once flaunted, the beauty that she had boasted about, that she had sort of shown off to other people, now what happens? Faded away, and the proud rose wilted in despair. In a matter of time, if she doesn't get any water, she might die. Well, and it's a very good point for reflection. When we are young, we are vibrant, maybe more beautiful, more handsome, full of vitality and all those things. But as we grow old, you find things do not remain the same. They will change. Have you seen an old person lacking in energy, lacking in strength, lacking in vitality, and the skin, the other parts of the body, the organs all begin to change. They become weaker. So if you do not see this Dharma and do not see these life lessons, then you feel very terrible, more miserable. So let us continue this story. So at the rose weakened stage, she became weaker and weaker. Then she looked, she glanced towards the cactus. Just now I showed the picture where she was not far away from the cactus, the proximity. So she glanced towards the cactus and she saw that the cactus, there was hardly any change. The cactus still stood so firm and fresh and resolute, very strong, like, being able to withstand, very determined with the strength he could withstand all the harsh conditions. Even though things were very tough, weather, the temperature, the lack of water, all very harsh conditions. But the cactus remained very resolute, very strong, being able to withstand all this. So now you can see that the rose is going to regret. All right, she is learning important lessons. Just as people also can learn lessons in life if they know the Dharma and develop the wisdom. Right. Now let us go on to slide number 6. And then, to her surprise, right, during that time, she saw a little sparrow perched on the cactus, delicately sipping water from a small crevice. Now, I tried to put in a picture just to let you have an idea. There was this sparrow, right, landing on the cactus, right? Don't know which part lah. But then you can see that on the surface of the cactus, there will be very, very small holes, right? Small holes. And it's not completely solid. So the sparrow, using her beak, could peek through the small holes into the cactus. And the cactus, you know very well, can store a lot of water. That's why the cacti, you can say, can survive very well in the hot desert. So they have a storehouse of the water reserved there. So this sparrow was taking some water, as you can see. And the cactus just allow it. The cactus did not chase or scold the sparrow away. So when the rose saw this, then she could see some hope of not dying because she was getting worse already. So then, but then she also knew that she had insulted the cactus during the good times. So she plucked up her courage, mustered the courage. And then she approached the cactus. So it will be quite interesting in the sense that if you say approach, could it be that the rose plant could move closer to the cactus? It could be, right? It could be, because it's a story. So it could move closer to the cactus. And then she had to swallow her pride. Her pride humble. So at first she was shy, but then after that, no choice. She hesitantly asked the cactus if she could have some water to quench her thirst and survive the relentless, seems to be, non-stop and merciless, that is nature. That is nature. You have to accept and embrace those changes. Then you won't be so miserable. But these two will not last. So, but the story did not tell how the cactus gave her the water. Yes, right? Probably you could imagine that the cactus, some of the branches could bend down and then squeeze some water into the rose. Whatever is not important. The important thing is the message that the cactus now. Let us see how would the cactus respond to the request by the rose, right? Because the rose had insulted him, ridiculed him, belittled him, right? And spoken terrible words against him before, but he did not respond. So now, would he take revenge? Right? Let us continue the story. Now we go on to slide 7. Of course, the cactus remembered what the rose said, remember the rose past behavior. Of course, the cactus, though hurt by the rose past behavior, but the cactus was very special. He was kind. He was compassionate. He felt pity for the rose current difficult situation, her plight, right? The terrible condition she's now in. So the cactus did not bear any grudge against the rose that had insulted him. In fact, he was compassionate and kind. And then he could reflect that we are all in this together. In this desert, right? Facing the forces of nature, none is free from that. So he could reflect with great wisdom. So he graciously agreed, So say, yes, I can help you. He was so kind and considerate. And he put aside all the grudges, the grudges inside. That means to let go and forgive, basically. And that is a very, very important spiritual practice. To let go of grudges, anger, hatred towards other people who might have hurt you. So she helped her because she had put aside all the grudges. So that's how the rose now did not die. And the rose getting some water, so would be able to endure the hard conditions. So she improved. So from that day on, the cactus and the rose now was very close to the cactus already, physically as well as mentally, you can see. And both of them became very good friends. Weathering the harsh desert sun. The conditions were very tough, it was summertime. So the two of them were very, very close. And the cactus was so kind and compassionate, shared the water that could save a living thing. The water that was life-sustaining with the rose that was dying. The rose that was wilting already. So with the water, so the rose regained her freshness to a good extent and regain some of her former beauty. You can't survive without water, all living things, as you know. So the rose really managed to be saved. Right? So the rose, of course, was very, very grateful. It was a changed rose already. So now let us go on to slide number 8. So as the days passed, they grew closer and closer, and the wise cactus showed all the compassion. Then the rose, who was once very proud, began to appreciate the true beauty of the cactus, the true word of the cactus. Of course, she had apologized and regretted, and then said sorry and all those things. Then the rose learned very important life lessons. She learned that beauty could be fleeting. Actually, it's not could be. Actually, beauty is fleeting. It is transient. It doesn't last. It's just superficial. But what is more important is the inner strength and kindness that would hold eternal value. As I put there, beauty is only skin deep. Right? So as a person grows old, you can see the skin changes, the texture, the look, all this, and then from a beautiful lady, you could be just quite an ugly or ordinary looking person with all the wrinkles, right? With all the, not so smooth and nice skin already. So through their friendship, then the rose learned many important lessons. She realized the depth of the cactus' character and wisdom. And she could see the inner beauty inside. She admired his resilience, his ability to withstand hard conditions, his patience, persistence, determination in enduring all the tough things around him. Very harsh conditions. And not only that, she admired the qualities of kindness and being very generous in helping. In other words, the cactus had these very, very important qualities as people should develop: character, wisdom, resilience, kindness, generosity, a charitable heart, always wanting to do dana. All these important qualities, they are the things that they go on. They go on. And of course, the Dharma, these qualities can be carried on your true wealth, your kindness, your compassion, your loving kindness, and then your wisdom. All these can carry on, not your superficial external beauty. And that was what the rose learned. So a very, very important Dharma teaching, actually. Now let us go on to slide number 9 now. So, again, of course, the rose apologized many times. So he became very humble and very grateful, seeing the kindness, the helpfulness, the Dana heart of the cactus. So she was very, very touched. And she apologized again and again. So with humility and gratitude, she was grateful to the cactus because the cactus saved her life. And then she became from a proud person, became a very humble person. And she praised the qualities of the cactus. She said kind words sincerely now. So the rose expressed her sincere apologies for the past behavior. The cactus in his magnanimity means very forgiving, unselfish, right? Yeah, with this charitable quality you can say kindness and the type of dana heart that is magnanimous to be kind, to be forgiving, and to be always willing to help. That is a very good quality, magnanimity. So the cactus forgave the rose. And the cactus had a lot of wisdom. He knew that sometimes all of us would give way to our weakness. Inside us, we have weaknesses, greed, ill will, hatred, pride, ego, all these things. Sometimes the Mara forces conquer us. So you find that this story tells a lot about the defilements of people. So sometimes because of lack of mind strength or spiritual strength, so we get caught by the evil forces of Mara. We become greedy, hot-tempered, very proud, always scolding people with all the wrong speech and so on. So now you can see changes that took place. So the friendship between the rose and the cactus blossomed like a rare desert flower, and they became inseparable companions. You can see now the change from the start. The rose despised, looked down upon, taunted, insulted, the cactus. But now they were inseparable companions. And then, of course, the rose, the behavior so nice. So you always would say sweet words, polite, right? And then also expressing gratitude. And all those things change in character. Actually, this reminds me of a very good story. I think some of you might have read or even watched the movie, The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a very beautiful church in France, not far from Paris. I visited that church, beautiful. And there was this story about the hunchback and the Notre Dame, about the beautiful lady that will visit the church to say prayers and so on. There was this hunchback, a very ugly looking, living in the church. So the first instant, the beautiful lady, of course, saw you also so horrible looking, so she would avoid and shun him. But as time went on, the hunchback showed the inner beauty. He was so kind. He was so helpful, right? And then he was so caring. So all the good qualities came out. And to cut the story short, the beautiful girl fell in love with the ugly hunchback because she could see the inner beauty that would be more lasting. And then, of course, the beautiful girl married the hunchback, ugly hunchback, and they live happily ever after. So remember that beauty, more important is the beauty of the character, the inner qualities that will last. Not the external, but many people today are just taken by the external thing only. And then after marriage, when the true colors come out, the wife no longer that beautiful, the trouble will start. You see. So remember that. Now let us go on to slide number 10. Now, we are now at slide number 10. So as I said just now, the rose and the cactus now became inseparable friends, right? Inseparable friends. And together they survive not only the scorching summers, but also the chilling winters, supporting and nourishing each other through every season. As I said, in the desert, you will get different seasons. And sometimes in the day itself, you find the conditions change so much. Daytime will be so hot and dry and really taxing. At night, it will be so very cold also. You see, so changing conditions. So you complain? That is natural, isn't it? So just as in the world, you have changing conditions like 8 whirlwinds. Sometimes things will be pleasant, sometimes will be painful, and then you sometimes will gain, sometimes will lose, and then you sometimes will have happiness, sometimes will have pain. Sometimes people blame you, sometimes people praise you. All these are changing conditions, just like in the desert, the conditions change. So those that can be more peaceful will be the ones that understand with wisdom the way things are. And they can embrace these changes more peacefully. That is a very important Dharma teaching. So these two now, probably they spoke to one another, they conversed all the good Dharma lessons. So they were very happy and peaceful, and they gave encouragement to one another, and they were very supportive of each other, right? Encouraging each other lah. So you find they could survive all the scorching summers and the very cold winters. And very important, you have strong support, with spiritual support. Likewise, among people, the people who face with terrible conditions, sicknesses, or loss of members of the family and so on. So if they have very strong support from good friends or relatives, or even holy people and so on, then you find the inner strength begins to build up. If you are alone and you find that things are so tough, you find it difficult, you may collapse. And that's why some commit suicide today, suicide rate going up. But if they have good spiritual friends, then things might be different. So as time went on, the news spread already, spread in the desert. So the other plants in the desert learned from the cactus and the rose profound friendship. They knew the whole thing, isn't it? All the other plants, and not only the other plants, also the insects and the other types of animals, right? They learn about the story or the happening between the rose that used to despise the cactus, and now they have become very strong, good friends. And why? I think just now I have already mentioned all this. And the other plants, and also you could say the desert animals, they realize important life lessons or Dharma teachings. They realize that true beauty lies not just in appearances, but in the way we treat others and the relationships we build. Now, in terms of Dharma, it's a very important thing, right? That actually, just the external body only, they will give way. The internal one is, full of problems and so on. That's why in the Buddhism, you have contemplation of the 32 body parts, all the things inside, your urine, your shit, your sputum, saliva, all this. And that's the way things are. So we must not only see the external surface. We must also understand things as they are. So when not so pleasant things happen, you could accept, you see. So the profound friendship now between the cactus and the rose was known by all the other plants. And they also could learn the important lesson of how the rose regretted her wrong behavior, her wrong speech, and apologized and became a very good living being. I wouldn't say person, change in character already. So they realized that very important things in life is the kindness, the metta, how we treat other people, right? Kindness, giving, helpfulness, and showing all the good moral character so that good relationships are built. That's why I put that picture of a heart with different people, and they nurture the relationship through the good ways they treat each other, right? So that is a very important life lesson. And we will look at it at the last slide or towards the end there. So this is slide number 10. Now we need to go to slide number 11. This one just to show the changing conditions of the desert, the picture, animated one. Now we are at slide number 11 now. So you find that nothing is permanent. Everything changes. Life is like a flux. The conditions of the world also don't remain permanent, unchanged. The only constant is change. So the tough condition, and one of the very tough conditions was the drought period, isn't it? Where the weather was so hot, and then there will be dryness and lack of water. The drought period lah, lacking in water, very dangerous period lah. So it ended already. So then some rain came, right? The weather was not so challenging, with cooler, everything. So with the water there, you find that the plants that were hibernating or what, they didn't die. They sort of went to a long sleep. And then they transformed. That means they grew up. And then you could see a very vibrant oasis. The oasis are sometimes the deserts you find, especially when it's off the arid season or the hot summer. Wow, you have pool of water, you have palm trees, and you have some of the plants in the could even flower, very different already. That's changing condition, just as in our world also. So it became a very vibrant oasis, blooming with the colors of unity and compassion. The plants or the animals in this oasis, and did they fight with one another? No, they live in harmony. And there was, well, you can say in a way, like compassion, understanding. There was the spirit of unity. Unlike human beings, like today you see, right? The disunity, the fighting, the conflict, the quarrels all over the world. We are worse off than the plants and the desert animals. So the once divisive rose, remember the rose was once very divisive with the speech, quarreling with the forces, complaining, criticizing, condemning, cursing. So now because a changed person already, or changed being, right, stood as a symbol of change and growth. This tells us a lesson that nobody is beyond help, right? Nobody would remain the bad so-called person or what. Just the story Angulimala lah, kill 900 over people. And yet later on, when he met the Buddha and he renounced, became a monk, and he cultivated and completely changed into a fantastic monk already. And in the end, actually became an arahant. So nobody is beyond redemption. So this rose now stood as a symbol that the other plants and the creatures, they could discard their bad habits. Some bad qualities still remain. And then we could change and grow. So now all realize that this change behavior of the rose inspire the others to go beyond just looking things at the surface and to be very judgmental and just this one very ugly lah, this one is very blue, to go beyond that and to find out the inherent, the good qualities that are inside that being, or you can say that inside that person, just as the story of the Hunchback of Notre Dame tells you. So from that day onwards, the desert celebrated the friendship of the cactus and the rose. The story of the cactus and the rose spread all over, right, the desert. And it was a testimony of the power of forgiveness. Oh, this is another very fantastic lesson. And the plants knew, right? And the creatures also knew that the cactus was magnanimous, was so forgiving, even though he was so insulted and belittled and insulted and so on. He forgave, right? So they began to appreciate these inner qualities of character. So they began to understand the true word and the beauty of the heart with all these good virtues and moral qualities. And that is what matters ultimately, not your external things like your beauty or your wealth and possession. So very fantastic. So when I read this story, I could see the Dhamma very clearly. I like the story. So I spent time doing a PowerPoint on this story. And the problem was trying to get the relevant pictures. So I hope you could see also the beautiful things. So now let us move on to slide number 12. Right. And so in the desert, to sum up the story, and so in the desert far away, a beautiful rose and an ugly cactus showed the world that friendship can sprout in even the most arid, the most dry and challenging and trying circumstances. Things can happen. Positive things can come. There can be changes for the better. And that is what the world has to learn. There's so much of enmity, ill will, anger, hatred in the world. Whereas you look at this story of the cactus and the rose, there's so much of life lessons that we can learn. So, the cactus and the rose taught us, just like the desert blooms, flowers after the rain, it could change, isn't it? Our lives too can blossom, provided we practice the right virtues. We practice the goodness that is inherent in our heart. And we must nurture the roots of compassion. So this very important spiritual divine quality called compassion. Divine quality, a Brahma Vihara, a sublime state. Empathy. Empathy is like, is higher than sympathy. You are being very kind and full of compassion and empathy, and you want to relieve the suffering of another person. You let go of all the grudges. So this cactus had this compassion and empathy, right? Now, never bore any grudges and help. Sparrow, so you could see, was help. And then the one that was the enemy also helped and became good friends. So very beautiful lessons from this. So that is this important emphasis on compassion, right? 慈悲啦. It's related to metta, also loving kindness, compassion actually will go together. So now let us go on to now we come to this second last slide, which is a very important slide. We want to reflect on the life lessons, or you could say Dharma teachings that we can reflect on and then try to understand deeper and practice. Important thing is practice. Reflection is important, yes, but you must put it into practice. So now let us look at each of them. I just put the background scenery of the cactus and the rose in the desert area. So now let us look at this is a very important slide. We'll spend some time. Now, the first life lesson, we have to be mindful of our speech, isn't it? Do not out of pride look down and insult others. So one very good lesson we have to learn is always be careful of the speech. And in this case, it is very obvious. The cactus use terrible speech. Say bad about the cactus. Use harsh speech. Slander. All the terrible things. Words that can hurt other people. And why? Because of ego. Because of pride. So we must learn this very important life lesson. Watch the speech. So before speech is spoken, very important, we have to reflect and think in the mind, because everything starts from the mind. The mind is the forerunner of all things. So we have to watch the mind, think before we speak. And this good speech will be speech of kindness, non-cruelty, non-ill will, non-enmity, non-anger. Instead, speech of kindness, speech of love, right? Speech of being very caring. All these positive qualities. Then you can see the changes that can take place within you. You'll be more peaceful and happy. You relate to other people. Other people also like you better. So imagine why? Our ignorance, out of the ego, which actually there's actually no self inside you. But the Mara force conquers you, the thinking that, wow, I'm very great. I have how many degrees, I have how many houses. All these are superficial. Anytime you can go. Recently, I read about one case. The boss of a Tauge shop in Ipoh or something, went to casino and so on. They're 40 years old, right? And then gamble and he got a few $1 million. No, wow, so happy. He couldn't take the shock. According to what I read in the news, he collapsed. They couldn't resuscitate him and he died. Nothing it would bring to you, right? Except your good inner qualities. So now let us go on to the next one. So I hope that you learn this important Dharma teaching, being mindful of the speech. And that is actually in the Noble Eightfold part, Sama Vacha. One of the aspects of Sila morality. We must have right speech, Sama Vacha. Not to lie, not to slander, or use divisive speech, or, fairy tales, all those terrible things. And then the third one, not to use harsh speech, words that can cause hurt to another person, that can harm another person. And the fourth one, talking all those frivolous talk. And it's actually frivolous talk also. We are just talk nonsense about the cactus and all those things, wasting time, isn't it? And causing harm. So that is right speech. Now let us look at the next Dharma teaching. We are all interconnected and dependent and depend on one another. It's actually a universal law that we are interconnected and we have interdependence. No man is an island. You can't just live by yourself alone. You don't bother about anything. You can't, isn't it? You depend on so many people for so many things. And then you also depend on the good things of the environment that you are enjoying, the rivers that give you the water, the rain that comes, the vegetables or plants that are edible, that grow. So we are interconnected, right? So, and we also depend on others, others depend on us. As you reflect and you see how very true it is, in order to get your food, in order to get your clothes, in order to get your luxury items, enjoy yourself, all this, you find that you are connected in all ways, isn't it? So when you reflect on this, just as you do not want other people to do certain things that harm you, that deprive you of certain of the things that you need, then likewise also we have to reciprocate. We must be kind and caring. There is this very important law, we call the law of karma. What goes around comes around. Right? You sow what you seed. You sow what you reap, not what you seed. You sow what you reap. And good begets good, bad begets bad. So when you know this, then you live in harmony. So this interconnectedness is a very important thing to grasp, a universal principle. So if people realize this, I think nations would be more at peace with one another. But today you find it's a very, very troubled world. How many battles and wars are raging? The war in Ukraine, between Russia and Ukraine, I think it's more than a year already. How many people have suffered and died and still going on? Isn't it? So then, because nothing is certain, you find that the most recent one, you have the earthquake in Morocco, more than 1,000 or few thousand have died already. Because the forces of nature, these are the laws. As long as you're in samsara, these things will happen. So if we are practicing the Dharma, practicing more good, then you find things can change. I have this strong feeling, right, that so much of problems all come because of negative forces. People's mind filled with negative forces. People do evil actions and so on. It's just like biblical story tells you about the fall of Sodom and Gomorrah, right? Those are stories that teach us very important things. Right? You find that people go into very, very bad behavior, no moral conduct, and then the calamities and tragedies will come. But you are in samsara, this is inevitable. Earthquakes, hurricane, flood, all these are forces of nature. But if there is more good, right, people will be able to cope better, and maybe solutions will come to lessen the suffering, all this. Now let us go on to the third Dharma teaching. To err is human, to forgive divine. I think you know this proverb, very, very important. All of us make mistakes. Only if you are enlightened, you're Buddha or an Arahant, all of us, we cannot be perfectly good. You say, oh, this is a good person, but in every so-called good person, if he's not enlightened yet, there will be some weakness and you can say some bad. In every so-called bad person, say this fella is a terrible person, he's in the prison, there's also some good. So when you can realize this very important teaching, then you cut your ill will, your anger, you let go of your grudges and so on. Because you know that because of the defilements of greed, hatred, delusion, right, inside us, the ego, all this. So sometimes we make mistakes. So when we make mistakes, important thing is we must apologize to the victims, to those that we have caused pain and hurt, and to ask for forgiveness, to apologize, all this. And then the correct way, we know it, then we take note of that, and then we make that resolution not to commit the wrong things again. And then we begin to do more and more good. Then you find there will be changes in your mind, and your mind will become more and more happy and peaceful. No point regretting and feeling guilt, remorse, and then do nothing, isn't it? Then in the end, you suffer from depression, feeling all the guilt. So that is the very good way to respond to errors or mistakes that you make. It's not that you condone, no. And the other person who has become the victims, if you hold on to the grudges and the anger, the hatred, ill will, then you suffer. And in future lives, you meet with the enemies again. So to let go, to forgive. That's why he say to forgive is divine. In fact, all religions teach about forgiveness. It doesn't mean you condone that thing, but that person is being helped, and then now he will move forward with more understanding. It doesn't mean that you say, okay, forgiven everything. It's not like that. You must take certain actions. But the victims forgive, let go. Then you find more peace and happiness can prevail among the parties concerned. So that's why I just wrote this. To err is human, to forgive divine. The wrongdoer must apologize. You must not have that ego, that conceit, always thinking that you are right only. But the rose, even though starting was egoistic, full of conceit and pride, but at the end, she changed. She apologized. She knew that she had done wrong, and she transformed. That is the beautiful thing. So we learn from this story a lot of good Dharma messages. Of course, I already given one presentation on the story of Angulimala. You could check back the past presentation, the whole story. Very fantastic life lessons that we can learn. Now let us go on to the fourth lesson. There is happiness and peace when we live in harmony within, with others, and the environment. Now let me emphasize this point. All living beings, let's say all people, you can relate better. All people want happiness and peace, isn't it? Who wants suffering? Who wants sadness, suffering in the mind? So all of us want happiness, especially mental happiness. Some have all the luxuries, all these so-called rich wealth, right? But they are not really truly happy, just having some pleasures and enjoyment for a certain time only. Then after that, they have all the problems again. So we want to be happy, truly happy and peaceful. And this can only come about if we will cultivate our mind. Actually, in Buddhism, it's through the Dhamma, but in other religions, there are ways to develop the mind to be more peaceful and in harmony within yourself. Some have conflicts in their minds, in their own minds within themselves. They hate themselves, they cannot forgive themselves, they're full of remorse, everything. That also no harmony in the mind, isn't it? So we must learn the Dhamma so that we can be in harmony within and also with other people. If we cannot relate well to other people, all this, there will be suffering, always clashing, isn't it? And then with the environment. The environment comes under the natural laws. Actually, even our minds and so on, also we have sets of laws governing. The environment is subjected to the laws of nature, isn't it? Like, certain conditions, you have earthquakes happening, thunderstorm, flood, and so on. So when we can understand this, right? Then we use our wisdom and we know how to cope with the changing conditions of the world. Then you find you can be more at peace, you can be more happy, you can live more meaningfully, and your wisdom grows day to day, and life has a meaning, has a purpose for you. And you will want to spread the message, to spread the Dharma to other people. So these are the 4 lessons that I just reflected on and decided to put into the second last slide. Not from the internet or things like that. This was on my own. Whereas the others I adapted and then did some changes and so on. Now let us go on to the end. It's been more than an hour already. We are going to go to the end. So I chose this particular picture. It's a drawing of a desert area. And then you find that I had to search what possible creatures could be found in deserts. I found that there is a type of eagle that can also survive in the desert. So I put in an eagle, and there's this type of insect, the insect that can survive. So actually I searched. And of course, the cactus and some desert plants lah. And then when the scorching sun rises, it's terrible. So we have to reflect on this, what we call a couplet lah. This is what I wrote. When wise life lessons are followed mindfully, we will be able to live more peacefully, naturally, certainly, undoubtedly. And wise life lessons would be the best, would be the teachings from the enlightened one. They give you all the wise life lessons that will help you to cut the dukkha and then finally get rid of all the suffering and become enlightened. But you have to practice, not just read like an academic text. You have to practice with full mindfulness. You put your attention, focus on all these things. You have to practice all those things after understanding and reflecting. So I have spoken more than an hour. So before we say sadhu 3 times, I would like to thank all you brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, everybody lah. And also maybe some youth members. I find it will be good if more youth members have affinity in the Dharma, because they have a very, very fresh mind and they can learn fast. So I would like to thank all those who have been watching the presentation, right? Say sadhu and thank you to all of you, because you have taken time, right? You have put in the effort to follow this long presentation with good focus and mindfulness. So let us say sadhu 3 times. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Brothers and sisters in the Dharma, may you all be well, happy, and peaceful. And may you always continue to learn what we call life lessons, or basically the Dharma, right? And so take care.